Well, hello, children. Welcome back. We're in chapter 8 of our story reading in the Pilgrim's Progress. So, this is going to be a little bit longer chapter. So, it's probably snowing outside right now, or there's at least probably snow on the ground if you're watching this. So, just kind of cozy up on the couch with your siblings, with your parents, and let's dive right on in. Chapter 8 of Pilgrim's Progress. So, I saw in my dream that he made haste and went forward, that if possible he might get lodging there. Now, before he had gone far, he entered into a very narrow passage, which was about a furlong off the porter's lodge. And looking very narrowly before him as he went, he espied two lions in the way. Now, he thought, I see the danger that mistrust and timorous were driven back by. The lions were chained, but he did not see the chains. He was afraid, and he thought also to go back after them, for he thought nothing but death was before him. But the porter at the lodge, whose name was Watchful, perceiving that Christian made a halt as if he would go back, cried to him, saying, Is your strength so small? Do not fear the lions, for they are chained and are placed there for trial of faith, where it is, and for discovery of those that have none. Keep in the middle of the path, and no hurt shall come to you. Then I saw that he went on, trembling for fear of the lions, but taking good heed to the directions of the porter. He heard them roar, but they did him no harm. Then he clapped his hands and went on till he came and stood before the gate where the porter was. Then said Christian to the porter, Sir, what house is this, and may I lodge here tonight? The porter answered, This house was built by the Lord of the hill, and he built it for the relief and security of pilgrims. The porter also asked where he was and where he was going. Christian responded, I have come from the city of destruction, and I am going to Mount Zion. But because the sun is now set, I desire, if I may, to lodge here tonight. What is your name? My name is now Christian, but my name at first was Graceless. I came to the race of Japheth, whom God will persuade to dwell in the tents of Shem. But how does it happen you come so late, and the sun is now set? I had been here sooner, but that wretched man that I am, I slept in the arbor that stands in the hillside. I would have been here much sooner, but that in my sleep I lost my evidence, and I came without it to the brow of the hill. And then feeling for it and not finding it, I was forced with sorrow of heart to go back to the place where I slept, where I found it, and now I have come. Well, I will call out the one of the virgins of this place, who will, if she likes your talk, bring you into the rest of the family, according to the rules of the house. So Watchful the porter rang a bell, at the sound of which came out of the door of the house a grave and beautiful damsel named Discretion, and asked why she was called. The porter answered, This man is on a journey from the city of destruction to Mount Zion. But being weary and benighted, he asked me if he might lodge here tonight. So I told him I would call for you, who after discourse with him, you may seem to be good to him, even according to the law of the house. And she asked him where he was and where he was going, and he told her. And she asked him also how he got into the way, and he told her. And she asked him what he had seen and met with in the way, and he told her. And at last she asked his name, and so he said, It is Christian. And I have so much more the desire to lodge here tonight, because by what I perceive, this place was built by the Lord of the hill for the relief and security of pilgrims. And so she smiled. But the water stood in her eyes, and after a little pause she said, I will call for 2 or 3 more of the family. And so she ran to the door and called out Prudence, Piety, and Charity, who, after a little more discourse with them, brought him into the family. And many of them, meeting him at the threshold of the house, said, Come in, thou blessed of the Lord. This house was built by the Lord of the hill on purpose to entertain such pilgrims. And then he bowed his head and followed them into the house. So when he had come in and sat down, they gave him something to drink, and consented together that until supper was ready, some of them should have some particular discourse with Christian for the best improvement of time. And they appointed Piety, Prudence, and Charity to discourse with them. And thus they began. Piety said, Come, good Christian, since we have been so loving to you to receive you into our house this night, let us, if perhaps we may, better ourselves thereby, talk with you of all the things that have happened to you on your pilgrimage. And Christian responded, Well, with a very good will, I am glad that you are so well disposed. And Piety said, What moved you at first to betake yourself a pilgrim's life? I was driven out by my native country by a dreadful sound that was in my ears, to wit, that unavoidable destruction did attend me if I did stay in the place where I was. But how did it happen that you came out of your country this way? It was as God would have it, for when I was under the fears of destruction, I did not know where to go. But by chance there came a man, even to me, as I was trembling and weeping, whose name is Evangelist, and he directed me to the wicket gate, which else I should never have found, and so set me into the way which had led me to this house. But did you not come by the house of the interpreter? Yes, and I did see such things there, the remembrance of which will stick by me as long as I live. Especially three things, especially of how Christ, despite of Satan, maintains his work of grace in the heart, and how the man had sinned himself quite out of the hopes of God's mercy, and also the dream of him who thought in his sleep the day of judgment was come. So why did you hear him tell his dream? Yes, and a dreadful one it was, I thought. It made my heart ache as he was telling of it, but I am glad that I did hear it. Was this all that you saw at the house of the interpreter? No, he took me and had me where he showed me a stately palace, and how the people were clad in gold that were in it, and how there came a venturous man who cut his way through the armed men that stood in the door to keep him out, and how he was bid to come in and win eternal glory. I thought those things did ravish my heart. I would have stayed at that good man's house a 12-month, but I knew that I had farther to go. And what saw you else in the way? Saw? Why, I went but a little farther, and I saw one, as I thought in my mind, hang bleeding upon the tree, and the very sight of him made the burden fall off my back, for I groaned under a very heavy burden, but then it fell off of me. It was a strange thing for me, for I never saw such a thing before. Yea, and while I stood looking up, for then I could not bear looking, 3 shining ones came to me. One testified that my sins were forgiven. Another stripped me of my rags and gave me this broidered coat which you see. And the third set the mark which you see on my forehead and gave me this sealed roll. But you saw more than this, did you not? The things that I have told you were the best. Yet some other matters I saw, as namely I saw 3 men, simple, sloth, and presumption. They lay asleep a little out of the way as I came, with irons upon their heels. But do you think I could awake them? I also saw formality and hypocrisy come tumbling over the wall to go, as they pretended, to Zion. But they were quickly lost, even as I myself did tell them. But they would not believe. But, above all, I found it hard work to get up this hill, and as hard to come by the lions' mouths. And truly, if it had not been for the good man, the porter that stands at the gate, I do not know but that, after all, I might have gone back again. But now I thank God that I am here, and thank you for receiving me. And then Prudence thought good to ask him a few questions and desired his answer to them. Christian, do you think sometimes of the country from where you came? Yes, but with much shame and detestation. Truly, if I had been mindful of that country from where I came, I might have had opportunity to have returned. But now I desire a better country, a heavenly country. Do you not yet bear away with you some of the things that then you were conversant with? Yes, but greatly against my will, especially my inward and carnal cogitations, with which all my countrymen as well as myself were delighted. But now all those things are my grief, and might I but choose mine own things, I would choose never to think of those things more. But when I would be a doing of that which is best, that which is worse is with me. Do you not find sometimes that if those things were vanquished, which at other times you are perplexed? Yes, but that is but seldom. But they are to me golden hours with which such things happen to me. Can you remember by what means you find your annoyances at times as if they were vanquished? Yes, when I think what I saw at the cross, that will do it. And when I look upon my broidered coat, that will do it. When I look into the roll that I carry in my bosom, that will do it. And when my thoughts wax warm about whether I am going, that will do it. And what is it that makes you so desirous to go to Mount Zion? Why, there I hope to see him alive that does hang on the cross. And there I hope to be rid of all those things that to this day that are in me an annoyance. There, they say, is no death, and there I shall dwell with such company as I like best. For to tell you the truth, I love him because I was by him eased of my burden, and I am weary of my inward sickness. I would fain be where I shall die no more, and with the company that shall continually cry, Holy, holy, holy. And then Charity, to Christian, said, Do you have a family? Are you a married man? I have a wife and 4 small children. And why did not you bring them along with you? Oh, and then Christian wept and said, Oh, how willingly I would have done it, but they were all of them utterly averse to my going on the pilgrimage. But you should have talked with them and have endeavored to have shown them the danger of staying behind. So I did, and I told them also what God had shown me of the destruction of our city. But it seemed to them that as one that mocked, they believed me not. And did you pray to God that he would bless your counsel to them? Yes, and that with much affection, for you must think that my wife and poor children were very dear to me. But did you tell them of your own sorrow of fear of destruction? For I suppose that destruction was visible enough to you. Yes, and over and over and over, they might also see my fears and my countenance, in my tears, and also my trembling under the apprehension of the judgment that did hang over our heads, but all was not sufficient to prevail with them to come with me. But what could they say for themselves as to why they did not come? Well, my wife was afraid of losing this world, and my children were given to the foolish delights of youth. So what by one thing and what by another, they left me to wander in this manner alone. But did you not by your vain life damp all that you by words used by way of persuasion to bring them away with you? Indeed, I cannot commend my life, for I am conscious to myself of many failings. I know also that a man by his conversation may soon overthrow what by argument or persuasion he does labor to fasten upon others for their good. Yet this I can say, I was very wary of giving them occasion by any unseemly action to make them averse to going on pilgrimage. Yea, for this very thing they would tell me I was too precise, and that I denied myself of things for their sakes in which they saw no evil. Nay, I think I may say that if what they saw in me did hinder them, it was my great tenderness in sinning against God, or of doing any wrong to my neighbor. Indeed, Cain hated his brother because his own works were evil, and his brothers were righteous. And if your wife and children had been offended with you for this, they thereby showed themselves to be implacable to good. And thou hast delivered your soul from their blood. Now I saw in my dream that thus they were talking together until supper was ready. So then they had made ready, they sat down to meat. Now the table was furnished with fat things and wine that was well refined, and all their talk at the table was about the Lord of the hill, as namely about what he had done and wherefore he did what he did, and why he had builded that house. And by what they said, I perceived that he had been a great warrior and had fought with and slain him that had the power of death, but not without great danger to himself, which made me love him the more. For, as they said, and as I believe, said Christian, he did it with the loss of much blood. But that which put the glory of grace into all that he did was that he did it out of pure love to his country. And besides, there were some of them of the household that said they had been and spoke with him since he did die on the cross. And they have attested that they had it from his own lips, that he is such a lover of poor pilgrims that the like is not to be found from the east to the west. They moreover gave an instance of what they affirmed, and that was he had stripped himself of his glory that he might do this for the poor, and that they heard him say and affirm that he would not dwell in the mountain of Zion alone. They said moreover that he had made many pilgrims princes, though by nature they were beggars born, and their original had the dunghill. Thus they discoursed together until late at night, and after they had committed themselves to the Lord for protection, they betook themselves to rest. The pilgrim they laid in a large upper chamber, whose window opened towards the sun rising. The name of the chamber was Peace, where he slept till break of day, and then he awoke and sang, Where am I now? Is this the love and care of Jesus for the men that pilgrims are, thus to provide that I could be forgiven and dwell already the next door to heaven? So in the morning they all got up, and after some more discourse they told him that he should not depart till they had shown him the rarities of that place. At first they had him into the study, where they showed him records of the greatest antiquity, in which, as I remember my dream, they showed him the pedigree of the Lord of the Hill, that he was a son of the Ancient of Days, and came by eternal generation. Here also was more fully recorded the acts that he had done, and the names of many hundreds that he had taken into his service, and how he had placed them into such habitations as could neither by length of days nor decays of nature be dissolved. Then they read to him some of the worthy acts that some of his servants had done. And as they had subdued kingdoms, they wrought righteousness, obtained promises, stopped the mouths of lions, quenched the violence of fire, escaped the edge of the sword, out of the weakness were made strong, waxed valiant in fight, and turned to flight the armies of the aliens. Then they read again in another part of the records of the house, where it was shown how willing their Lord was to receive in his favor even any, though they in time past had offered great affronts to his person and proceedings. Here also were several other histories of many other famous things, of all which Christian had a view, as of things both ancient and modern, together with the prophecies and predictions of things that had their certain accomplishment, both to the dread and amazement of enemies, and the comfort and solace of pilgrims. The next day they took him and had him into the armory, where they showed him all manner of furniture which their Lord had provided for pilgrims, as sword, shield, helmet, breastplate, all prayer, and shoes that would not wear out. And there was here enough of this to harness out as many men for the service of their Lord as there be stars in the heaven for multitude. They also showed him some of the engines with which some of his servants had done wonderful things. They showed him Moses' rod, the hammer and nail with which Jael slew Sisera, and the pitchers, trumpets, and lamps too, which Gideon put to fight the armies of Midian. Then they showed him the ox's goad wherewith Shamgar slew 600 men. They showed him also the jawbone with which Samson did such mighty feats. They showed him moreover the sling and stone with which David slew Goliath of Gath, and the sword which the Lord with which the Lord will kill the man of sin, and that day he shall rise up to the prey. They showed him besides many excellent things with which Christian was much delighted. This done, they went to their rest again. Then I saw in my dream that on the morrow he got to go forwards, but they desired him to stay till the next day also. And then they said, We will, if the day be clear, show you the delectable mountains, which, they said, would yet further add to your comfort, because they were nearer the desired haven than the place where you presently are. So he consented and stayed. When the morning was up, they had him to the top of the house and bid him to look south. And he did. And behold, at a great distance he saw a most pleasant mountainous country, beautified with woods and vineyards and fruits of all sorts, flowers also with springs and fountains very delectable to behold. And then he asked the name of the country. And they said it was Emmanuel's land. And it is as common, they said, as this hill is, to and for all the pilgrims. And when thou come here, from there thou mayest go to the gate of the celestial city, as the shepherds that live there will make appear. Now he thought to himself of setting forward, and they were willing he should. But first, they said, Let us go again to the armory. And so they did, and when he came there, they harnessed him from head to foot with what was proof, lest perhaps he should be met with assaults on the way. He being, therefore, thus accoutered, walked out with his friends to the gate, and there he asked the porter if he saw any pilgrims pass by. And the porter said yes. Pray, do you know him? They said. I asked his name, and he told me it was Faithful. Oh, said Christian, I know him. He is my townsman, my near neighbor. He comes from the place where I was born. How far do you think he may be before? He has got by this time below the hill. Well, said Christian, good porter, the Lord be with thee, and add to all thy blessings much increase for the kindness you have showed me. And then Christian began to go forward, but discretion, piety, charity, and prudence would accompany him down to the foot of the hill. And so they went on together, reiterating their former discourses till they came down to the hill. And then said Christian, as it was difficult coming up, so far as I can see, it is dangerous going down. Yes, said Prudence, so it is. For it is a hard matter for a man to go down to the valley of humiliation, as thou art now, and to catch no slip by the way. Therefore, they said, we are to come out to accompany thee down the hill. So he began to go down the hill, but very warily, yet he caught a slip or two. And then I saw in my dream that these good companions, when Christian had got to the bottom of the hill, they gave him a loaf of bread, a bottle of wine, a cluster of raisins, and then he went on his way. And that's the end of chapter 8. A long chapter. But I just love how when they ask Christian, hey, so what helps you live the Christian life? What helps you continue to go on the way, perhaps when you're tempted to not do that? And he's reminded that his sins were forgiven, he's been clothed in righteousness, and that he has the role, which is Scripture. So he has all those things. We're forgiven, we have Jesus' righteousness, and we have God's Word, and that helps us live the Christian life. I hope you enjoyed that. We'll return in 2 weeks. Next week is Thanksgiving week, right? So we'll come back in 2 weeks and do chapter 9. Take care of one another, enjoy the snow, and God bless.